Good afternoon, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty. And just to get it out of the way, I'm also doing this on TikTok. We're not also doing it at the same time. I've already done one on TikTok. It's 3 minutes long. So you guys are actually going to get a whole 5 minutes. So you're going to get like extra content, which is brilliant. YouTube actually lets me do these slightly longer, so I'm going to use both for now. But if you do prefer TikTok as a way of enjoying videos, there's a link in the description, and I'll just pop it up into the chat right now. That's basically you're going to get the cut down version of what I've done now. You don't necessarily need to watch both at all. Choose which one you want to watch, but the option's there for you. And what we're reviewing today is the new relaunch of Venom. And it's worth, before we get into it, talking about the creators of this comic book, because we've got Al Ewing and Ram V. Both, I think, would be no one arguing this one. I consider quite leftist producers. Al Ewing really pushed for trans inclusion in his latest work after Immortal Hulk, and Ram V has done an absolutely brilliant anti-colonialism comic book called The Savage Shores. So yes, brilliant. They're in my wheelhouse, and also fantastic writers. Ram V did Blue and Green, which is one of the best horror comic books I've read recently. Definitely one of the best things I've read this year, and it's lyrical, poetic genius of writing. So much so that I occasionally stop and just read things out loud, because that's how you're supposed to enjoy poetry. Al Ewing, I don't think I really need to tell you how good he is. Go and read his Immortal Hulk. It's like the best redefining of a character I think I've ever seen. I'd like to say it's the best Hulk comic book I've ever read, but it pretty much is the only Hulk comic book I've ever read. I loved it, don't get me wrong. His work kind of like had a little bit of taint thrown at it simply because the artist he worked with, who was spectacular at a job, also turned out to be an anti-Semite, proto-fascist, and as such, piece of poop. So, there's that going on, but Al Ewing has distanced himself. The work, I think, should stand alone. And what they're both doing now is reinventing another character. They're doing Venom. Now, those two writers both have very good horror chops, but the artist they've got is Brian Hitch, who for the most part is kind of known for big, over-the-top, widescreen sci-fi action extravaganza. He's done other stuff, don't get me wrong, but that's what I think everyone would expect from him. Just go back and check out his Authority back in the day. It's beautiful to behold. At the time, I would rate him as one of the best comic book artists that was going on. And you see his style quite often in this book. This is just one example because I really quite like the sheer motion of what's going on, the vivacity of it. There's so much taking place there as a big widescreen splash. And we know that Al Ewing likes a splash page. His very first issue of Immortal Hulk had literally 2 splash pages in a row, which were exceptionally well done. So we know we can expect this kind of thing from them. But this is still a horror comic book at heart, and it actually uses horror in a different way than I was expecting. Certainly not the way I would have put something like Brian Hitch on for. It actually feels a lot more like I've used the movie The Thing as a good example of this one. It's a lot more paranoia than it is like gore and splatter. The idea of who can you trust, who they say they are they telling you things for their own reasons, or are they trying to basically get ahead of the game? The best example of this in the book is because it's more about Eddie's kid Dylan. Dylan is basically waiting for his father to come because his father now is king of the symbiotes and is off traversing the galaxy or known space at least, because he can jump into symbiote whenever he chooses to, which is kind of cool. But then his dad comes home and says, "Oh, in danger, we must leave." But then he gets a phone call from his dad. Well, his dad is downstairs telling him the dad downstairs isn't really his dad. And it becomes this whole, who do you trust, who do you listen to? How can you know what's going on? Do like the paranoid style of horror. I think it works really nicely, but it does kind of fly a little bit in the face of the Brian Hitch art. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't do like a bad job, but you can't really do a bad job if somebody's in their bedroom talking on the phone. It's perfectly capable art. But I think somebody with a little bit more of an eye for that kind of detail could have thrown a bit more darkness into it. It could have maybe done a little bit of foreshadowing. But as it is, it comes across as quite a standard little bit of comic book art and comic book writing. Well, the writing is what it is, but the art doesn't elevate it. It doesn't use the tools that an artist has to add layers of paranoia and layers of fear to it. What it does do is when there is big space battles, it looks brilliant. And when there is a bit more in the way of shock and gore horror, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, the change of color palette and the characterization there do look absolutely brilliant. I'm not criticizing Hitch for not being a good artist. I don't want anyone to think that. They do the exact kind of job that I'd expect them to do, and they do it well. But I really want to see more of the horror side of things, and I'm not sure they're the best artist for it. But it is a great reinvention of the character. Basically, Eddie Brock going off and being an actual hero, although still kind of tainted by his own personal beliefs. And thankfully, if you don't want to go back and read all of I wish I was Todd McFarlane Kate, you don't necessarily need to. I've not read all of it, and I came into this one perfectly fine with a little bit of exposition they give, building on the story he was telling and going in their own direction. It is confident and really, really good fun to read. I hope if you pick it up, you really enjoy it. That's it for me today, though. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe.